Okay, well, this is the what I call the Our Project Matrix. It's a sieve that sluices 17 years of language at SOM. It reminds us that our words have meaning and that we have to choose them with care because, oh, sorry, people listen to them and they have a way of sticking. Having worked on this, I moved to another kind of PK. This is a book I wrote. I'm also an architectural historian on the side. I stumbled into some research about a very interesting man who used to live in Chicago but opened his own office in San Francisco and executed a number of incredible works of ultra-Orthodox modernism. I learned many lessons from my first project that was ever built. This was a lap pool addition to a house in Washington, Virginia that I was fortunate to have worked on. More recently, I moved on to an even smaller project, which is actually a room inside of a room. This is a crib for my then newborn son, who is now 6, but unable to find a crib that was not horrifically visually offensive. Took it as a challenge to make one myself that had only 5 parts, and while it cost less money, it took much, much more time. It has the added benefit of being extremely heavy, and it cannot be tipped over. In my career at SOM, I've been very fortunate to work on a number of atypical, kind of strange for SOM projects. These are all very small buildings or non-skyscrapers. This is a headquarters in Los Angeles for Kia Motors. That's 2 buildings, a administrative center with a beautiful gallery to display the cars and a design studio next door where they design the cars. Both of these buildings are built with very low budgets and very simple elemental technology. In this case, they're all using tilt-up concrete as an exterior wall that is both structure and skin. And in working through that technology, which was something new to me, I'd never done it before, we wanted to work that technology, which is pretty heavily rule-driven, as a way, use it as a tool to both demonstrate the loads that move through the panel, because it is structure, by tapering it, and putting the whole thing on display. So there are only 3 or 4 panels that clad this entire building. We were lucky to have won a competition in 2001 for the Cathedral of Christ the Light in Oakland, California. That was a replacement for a building that was demolished in an earthquake. This was a unique project in every aspect to have worked on from both the program. It's a completely integrated structural solution where the structure is on display in the building. And the interior, I think, speaks to our SOM's and our, as humanity's, great legacy of spiritual architecture, which strives to ennoble the human spirit while continuing to explore modernism in the 21st century. Light, structure, and space brought together in a seamless whole. The same year, we won a competition for a new United States embassy in Beijing. This was the largest embassy the State Department had ever built before we invaded Iraq. That one then became the biggest one, but this was a really interesting and unusual project to work on, and the State Department was a strange and complicated client to deal with, but as an unusual complex that atomized the buildings into smaller pieces and tried to break them down into more friendly, approachable buildings that made extensive use of glass and glazing and a unique entry for people seeking visas through a colonnaded, welcoming open porch. Immediately afterwards, we then won another commission for a consulate, this one in Guangzhou. This was opened in 2013. In this case, we inherited a site plan that couldn't be changed, but worked hard to ennoble the main consular building as the centerpiece of an informal complex that wraps the program with a stone sheath that insulates the interior from the tropical sun. The main consular hall at the interior continues many of the themes we were looking at and working with in the cathedral, creating a dignified, warm interior civic room. A series of occupiable, wood-lined Corten steel boxes provide seating and vistas out to the exterior waiting garden. Currently, we're working on this project, and some of the team that worked on the project is here right now. It's a new building for Roche in Indianapolis. It's a small 2-story high building made of steel and glass. It's providing a new front door to an existing campus of awful buildings. It's organized along a central axis that's 2 stories high, and it drops daylight down into a double-height space. There's a series of open training labs. The elemental expression of a horizontal bar stretching out within the prairie landscape is among the most sustainable projects in the Chicago office today by virtue of an integrated design that includes operable exterior sunshades on the windows. Structurally, the building is supported by a unique series of solid steel bar stock columns and exposed wide flange steel beams. These steel columns are 5 by 5 inches square and 32 feet tall. Set within this framework are a series of radiant panels in the ceiling and underfloor displacement ventilation. The primary building material is clear glass. The building uses 68% less energy than the existing building which it replaces. Despite being nearly twice as large, the building will be the first in the Chicago office to meet the 2030 challenge. You're very kind to a small startup. We appreciate that. Finally, on a more personal note, it's a recently completed project of love, a home for my family. The site was the southern half of a floor of a high-rise on Lakeshore Drive, which was a complete gut renovation. Unlike one of the previous presenters, many people are showing their own houses here tonight. I have a serious collection problem, but not nearly as serious as some of the ones we've seen earlier. A lifelong collector of books. Books are still relevant. AIA Guide. The bookshelf section with clear story windows above them affords a unique and memorable manner in which to display a collection of souvenir buildings that have been gathered from around the world, and an imaginary skyline is projected onto the adjacent wall every afternoon at sunset. We are humbled by experiencing the straight character of the horizon and the changing light along the lake on the rising sun every day, framed at different times within a clear eye-level margin of the offset pivoting fritted glass door at the entry. Thank you all for allowing me to share this with you tonight.